Hey everybody, Motorpoet59 here. I'm talking a little bit about San Francisco. I hate San Francisco. I've never liked San Francisco. The first time I ever went was, I believe it was 2003. We went up to Hollister for the big bike rally up there, and we stayed in Watsonville. And one of the days that we were up there, we all were about, I don't know, about 15 of us, I guess, maybe even more than that. And this is back when I used to ride with big biker groups. They were a bunch of nerds, the Hog group, and a bunch of nerds like me. And but anyway, there were a bunch of us, and everybody said, "Hey, let's go into San Francisco to Dudley Perkins," which was the oldest Harley-Davidson dealership on the West Coast. So we took off up there, and mind you, this is July 4th weekend, Independence Day weekend, and we got up there. But Dudley Perkins was downtown. I'm not real familiar with San Francisco, but it was down in the downtown area. And the first thing I noticed when we got into San Francisco was how absolutely and unbelievably crowded it was with people and cars, how unbelievably small the streets were, how narrow they were. There was no way you could split lanes on a motorcycle, which is perfectly legal in California, but you couldn't do it up there, just not enough room. And we went through Haight-Ashbury and a few other places, I guess, that were supposedly cool San Francisco things. I didn't think of it was cool. I was irritated the whole time. And then when we got to Dudley Perkins, it was just another Harley shop. I didn't even buy a shirt. I was so annoyed that all I could think of the whole time I was there is that now we have to get out of here in this traffic. But I had had enough of San Francisco at that time. Today, what brought doing this video to mind was I was watching a piece on YouTube on a YouTube channel called California Insider, and it was an interview with a former San Francisco resident and executive for Levi's named Jennifer Say, S-E-Y. I suggest I'll put a link in the description below to that video. A very interesting and exposing video from someone who, according to her, considered herself pretty much left of center her whole life until San Francisco changed her mind. And what I'm not going to get into all the details of what she had said. You can watch a video, but I've said all along that San Francisco, Portland, which I'm not all that familiar with Portland. I've been there a few times. Same thing as Seattle. I've been there once. I didn't like either place, and one of the reasons is because there's such hypocritical and elitist leftist cities, and I just can't stand it. I just can't stand being in places like that, knowing that that is the way those cities operate. In San Francisco, and I've said this for a long time, you have the rich, the Pelosi's, the Newsoms, all the families, the Boxers, the Feinsteins, the political families, and you have the young, elitist, white techies up there that are ultra rich. And nothing bothers them. They're in their gated communities and live behind ivy-covered brick walls or whatever kind of walls they are, with security guards and all the protection that most people can't afford. And then on the other end are the homeless encampments, which are, they're on the news all the time. This gal talked about it. Jennifer says she talked about it too. How you just can't raise your kids there. It's just too prevalent. It's dangerous. All the drug use. Homeless, I've always said that homeless people themselves, the people aren't necessarily dangerous. You're not generally going to get attacked by them. Some of them are nutcases, but for the most part, if you tell them to get away from you, they will. They don't come after you, but you just can't avoid it. Even in Bakersfield, it's hard to avoid those places. In San Francisco, it's impossible. And what is happening is San Francisco is a shining example of how socialism works. You have the ultra rich who can afford to live there. Nobody else can afford to live there anymore. Unless you're really wealthy, you just can't afford to live there anymore. It's just too expensive. and everyone else is too poor to leave. And they live in the slum parts of San Francisco and Oakland, and they live in the streets and they live in their cars. There are people, I've seen a few deals on YouTube where people are, they have their videos. They talk about living in their cars during the week and then driving home on the weekends, and they live in Vacaville or Bakersfield or wherever, and they just go up there and they stay in their cars up there. It's incredible, but that is the shining example of socialism. Those at the top and those at the bottom, and no one in the middle anymore. And I've always said, as socialism, you have the haves and the have-nots. At least in capitalism, you have, like me, the have-somes. When the left get their way, and if we don't start fighting back, if these young millennials and these Gen Zers don't start paying attention to what's going on and how things are being affected by the way they vote and their inclusive natures instead of their realistic natures, we will end up with socialism. And all those people, those Gen Zers and stuff that think things are unicorn farts and rainbows, are all going to be down in the bottom with the rest of us. They're not going to be living up there up on the house on the hill, up there in the gated communities. That's not going to happen. They are going to be down here with the rest of us, and they're going to wish that they had paid closer attention. I always encourage young people, especially with all the information available on the internet now, go watch videos about the Soviet Union. Watch videos about how Cuba still is, Venezuela. Watch what happened to these countries under socialism, and don't take the American leftist, elitist, and Democrat toe-the-line people. Don't take their word for what socialism means or ever was or ever will be. It will always be the same. There's no such thing as a kinder, gentler socialism. People say, oh, but what about the Scandinavian countries? Those are not socialist countries. They are countries with a lot more social programs than we have in America, but they pay half their income in taxes. And many of the people, and I always bring this up, my ex-son-in-law moved here from Denmark, and he said he would never go back. I have a friend who is a rail fan who comes over and visits. He's from England. And they talk about how long it takes to get to see a doctor. And the actual health care you get, it's not that good. And in the case of Denmark, Klaus said that he paid 52% income tax to support many programs that he wasn't even able to use because he was young. And he talk about that, and those countries have market economies. They are not socialist countries, but the socialist state is what the American left are trying to accomplish. They're not interested in a market economy with bigger social programs and higher taxes. That's not their goal. Their goal is to eliminate the middle class by pretending to promote a classless society, but there's no such thing. There is no such thing as a classless society. There is the such thing as a classless political party, and that's the Democrats. There's no classless society. There's always going to be the haves and the have-nots. Always. There's no way to avoid that. It was like that in socialism. It was like that in communism. My mom used to say the only difference between socialism and communism is in communism, if you dissented in communism, they threw you in a gulag, and if you dissented in socialism, they just took you out somewhere and shot you. And it's kind of true when you look at the history of the way this all worked. But getting back to San Francisco, as I said, a shining example of how socialism works. The haves and the have-nots. They're getting to where there's no middle class there anymore because the middle class can't afford to live there, and the bottom of the barrel can't afford to leave. And the only thing that's left is the elitist white socialists. I'm sure that there are a couple of minorities in that, but probably not very many. And these people are hypocrites. They don't want people who are different from them around them. That's one of the things that this Jennifer Say said, and I've been saying it for a long time, people like that aren't interested in inclusiveness or equity or any of the crap they profess to be interested in. They are interested in keeping people like me and people like those people living in tents and in their cars away from them. And they do that with their gates and their brick walls and the ocean on the other side of them. I will never go back to San Francisco. I may go through it, and I've said this before, I may go through it on the Harley sometime or on a trip and go across the Golden Gate Bridge, but I probably won't even do that. As I said, I've done that. Been there, done that. I don't need to do it again. So, I don't know, man. I am not a fan of San Francisco. I never have been, and I will never go back there. They will never get another dime from me, and that's just the way I feel about that. How about you? Do you live in the Bay Area? Do you like San Francisco? Do you live there? Are you one of the elitists, or are you one of the disappearing middle class there? Let me know in the comments below. Shoot me an email at motorpoet59@gmail.com. Like, share, subscribe, click on the bell if you want to be notified of future content, and we'll see you all later.